Okay, think about this for a second. How many fantasy worlds have we all encountered? Especially, in RPGs.
A lot. Definitely a lot.
Right. And haven't you ever noticed how many familiar pieces there are? Like the classic Stoke dwarves, the ancient elven forests, the same old monsters and the same old dungeon.
Yeah, the tropes can get a bit repetitive sometimes.
Exactly. So what if we just deliberately tear that down? What if the actual core of a fantasy world was something completely unexpected?
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
Welcome everyone to this deep dive.
Today we are definitely heading into some interesting territory. We're looking at homebrew campaign settings for tabletop games. And our main source here is an article from LitRPG Reads. It's by Heidi Jiang, just came out yesterday, May 20th, 2025. It's called 5 Unique Homebrew Campaign Settings to Inspire Your Tabletop D&D Game.
Yeah, and this isn't just, another list of places you've heard of. Heidi's given us 5 really different, really imaginative concepts.
Right, they're designed to get the creative gears turning, push us past that standard high fantasy stuff.
She actually calls it raw campaign potential. And that's what we want to explore with you today. Dig into that potential, give you some inspiration, those aha moments without, burying you in details.
I think what's really cool is how she challenges what we expect. She's asking us to picture worlds where the basic rules are different, where the place itself, the environment, tells a totally new kind of story.
Yeah, these aren't just surface changes. They feel like they could fundamentally change how you play, how you run an adventure.
And, as people who've spent probably too many hours exploring these kinds of worlds,
Guilty?
that's the kind of thing we're always looking for, right? That spark, finding a really fresh idea that makes you think, wow, okay, what else is possible in gaming?
Totally. So let's jump into the first one. It's called the sinking shards.
Okay, the sinking shards. The name itself gives you a picture, doesn't it? A world that's shattered, broken into countless islands, these shards floating in a chaotic sky over this, endless ocean below.
It's a powerful image. The article describes the sky with these deep purples, hopeful greens, ominous grays. It immediately gets your imagination going. You've got civilizations clinging to these floating bits of rock.
And it all apparently comes from some massive cataclysm way back when. Nobody really remembers the details. So what's left are these shards, all different sizes, and they're always in danger of just falling.
Right, that constant threat. It changes everything. Things we take for granted, like air, water, land to grow food on, they're super scarce, super valuable, probably fought over constantly.
And that scarcity, that danger, it shakes the societies. Getting between the shards is vital for trade, for survival, but it's incredibly risky.
How do they do it?
Well, Heidi mentions things like airships, maybe running on volatile tech.
Yeah.
Engineered birds that need special handlers, and teleportation magic, but it's risky, unreliable.
Okay, so right there, you've got campaign ideas. Controlling the air routes, dealing with failing teleporters, maybe escorting vital supplies.
Exactly. And where there's valuable trade, there's usually
Pirates.
sky pirates. Heidi calls them sky corsairs, preying on those trade routes. And things like shard-bound maps, maps that supposedly show safe paths or maybe even predict shard movements. Those would be incredibly valuable. Lots of room for intrigue there.
What else makes this place kick? Magic? Religion?
Yeah, both. And they're tied to the environment. She talks about localized storm gods tied to specific shards, so you could have totally different pantheons, maybe even religious wars between islands.
Interesting.
And then there are these etheric currents, like tangible streams of magical energy in the sky. People might worship them, or figure out how to weaponize them, or use them to power their ships.
Weaponized faith. Weaponized magic streams. That sounds intense. It feels like conflict would be baked into this world.
For sure. And the isolation of these shards means cultures would develop in really different, maybe extreme ways. Heidi mentions some shards having hyper technology, while others are mystics who miss gravity.
Revering gravity. That's wild.
And outsiders, travelers, probably viewed with a lot of suspicion. Getting all the shards to work together seems like a long shot. Alliances would be shaky.
Does she give examples of specific cultures?
Yeah, little snippets like crystal-blooded monks, Skyrack privateer fleets, Iron Court gearites. Just those names give you ideas, right? Who are these people? What do they want?
Definitely. And the campaign hooks sound pretty epic too. Trying to find lost pieces of the world to put it back together. Dealing with something waking up in that infinite ocean below.
Or just navigating the politics between the shards, trying to build trust where there isn't any. And always that risk of falling. It adds this constant tension.
Okay, that's a really strong start. Let's shift gears to the next one. The verdant singularity. Sounds green.
Oh, it's green all right, but not in a gentle way. This is a world where sentient plants haven't just taken over, they are the dominant force. Human structures are just ruins covered in vines.
So nature reclaiming the world, but the nature is intelligent.
Actively intelligent. Heidi uses phrases like moss remembers, trees interpret, and lichen negotiates. The landscape itself is alive, aware, maybe even communicating. It can change, shift, even hunt.
Whoa, okay, that's a different kind of post-apocalypse. Not mutants, but like thinking trees.
Pretty much. Imagine trying to sneak through a forest that might be listening to your thoughts or trying to negotiate passage with a giant sentient fungus. The air itself could be full of signals.
So who's in charge? Is it one big plant mine?
No, that's the interesting part. There are rulers called Bloom Lords, but they're not united. They have their own territories, their own ideas about how things should be. They fight root wars against each other.
Root wars. Love it. What kinds of bloom lords are there?
All sorts. Heidi mentions fungal overlords pulling strings underground, philosophical flower kings, even tyrannical plant despots. Again, she gives these great evocative names.
Like what?
Let's see. The Moss Scryers of Dome, the Orchid Seers of High Bloom, the Ironroot Syndicate. Each one just sparks ideas about what that faction might be like.
It really does.
Sure.
What about people? Are there any humans left?
Yes, but some have adapted in a unique way. They're called the Bloom Touched. They've formed symbiotic bonds with the plant life, giving them special abilities.
Ah, okay. So that's a cool character concept. You're part human, part plant. Dealing with that identity, maybe being seen as special or dangerous, depending on where you are.
Exactly. Lots of role-playing potential there. And it ties into how you interact with the world. For instance, dungeons aren't stone corridors anymore.
They're gardened.
Dungeon gardening, she calls it. Yeah, they're living jungles. Full of botanical traps, puzzles you solve by interacting with the plants, not just hitting them. Maybe you need to cultivate a certain flower to open a path, or appease a giant fly trap.
That sounds amazing. A completely different way to approach exploration and problem solving.
Totally. The examples are great too, like the Briarhold Vault made of living thorns, or a lichen library where spores might steal your memories or give you forgotten ones.
Man, the possibilities. And campaigns. What kind of big goals could there be?
Things like stopping a root merge, where maybe all the plant minds try to become one, or trying to restore balance between the plants and whatever animal life is left. Or maybe a quest for a Bloom Lord, like finding a cure for a dying plant god.
Especially personal if you're playing a Bloom Touch character, I bet. Okay, this is fantastic stuff. Let's move on to the next one. The cacophonic realms. Sounds noisy.
It is, but in a really fundamental way. In the cacophonic realms, sound isn't just something you hear, it's like the fabric of reality.
Okay, unpack that for me. How does that work?
Well, imagine cities that literally pulse with rhythmic laws. Spells aren't cast with words, they're sung or played. Wars might be fought with harmonies and dissonant frequencies. And silence. Silence is terrifying, maybe even unnatural.
Wow. So a city could be a symphony. Architecture designed for acoustics.
Exactly. Heidi calls them resonant cities. Customs, laws, even justice could be musical. She mentions echo-coded courts, where truth is found in harmonic resonance. Or maybe flute tax collectors who demand payment in perfect melodies.
That's incredibly imaginative. What about magic users and creatures?
They're called soundcasters, mages who weave spells from sound. And there are echo-forged constructs literally made of living sound. Imagine fighting something like that.
A battle that's also a concert. Or maybe a really loud noise complaint. It changes everything.
It really does. And of course there has to be conflict. There's a group called the Silent Rebellion.
Rebels who want...
Quiet. Pretty much. They see the constant sound as a corruption, maybe. They want to restore primal silence, and they actually use silence itself as a weapon. Imagine areas where magic just stops working because there's no sound.
That's a fantastic conflict.
Yeah.
An ideological battle over the very nature of the world. So campaign ideas could be about tuning the world.
Yeah, like tuning a giant cosmic instrument, maybe a god harp, to fix reality. Or saving a city whose fundamental harmony is fading. Or maybe dealing with a forbidden song that could unravel everything.
And the idea of a character being a reincarnated musical note. That's just, wow. Very cool. Okay, next up, the Hourglass Abyss. Sounds like time travel might be involved.
Bingo! But it's time travel integrated into a dungeon setting. Imagine a massive, maybe sentient mega dungeon, but its corridors don't just twist through space, they twist through time.
So you walk down a hallway and end up in the past. or the future.
Exactly. Past, present, future, they all kind of blur together inside this place. It creates paradoxes, messes with causality. The whole dungeon is constantly shifting, maybe centered around some kind of time core.
That's a headache waiting to happen, in the best possible way for an RPG. How do people live with that?
Well, civilizations have adapted. Heidi calls them epoch-touched civilizations. Some might constantly move to stay ahead of temporal shifts. Others might try to understand the patterns. She mentions sandwalkers of the near past and mirror folk of the unreal future.
Near folk of the unreal future. Intriguing. And characters. Can players tap into this time stuff?
Oh yeah, there are chronoclasses, like sorcerers who draw on temporal energy. And paradox races, beings literally born from glitches in time, like future folk who might have flashes of futures that may or may not happen.
Playing a character like that would be intense. Dealing with memory, premonitions, maybe alternative versions of yourself.
Definitely. And the dungeon itself isn't just rooms and traps, it's a whole world of time anomalies. A passage might lead to an echo of a past battle, or a glimpse of a potential future. Politics would be insane factions trying to predict the shifts, or even change the past.
So the dungeon is the world, essentially. A world built on unstable time.
Pretty much. And campaigns could involve trying to stabilize that time core, fighting creatures made of paradox, or maybe dealing with prophecies that you might cause yourself by trying to avoid them. It allows for really non-linear adventures.
You know, that actually reminds me of a game I was in recently. We found this old scroll, right? Supposedly showed glimpses of the future.
Oh yeah, how'd that work out?
It was tricky. The visions were super fragmented, often confusing. One showed a key alliance falling apart, but gave zero context. So for ages, we were walking on eggshells around our allies, terrified we'd accidentally say the thing that triggers the collapse we saw.
Huh. That's brilliant. Creates so much tension just from uncertainty.
Exactly. It totally changed how we played those interactions, made us paranoid about consequences,
Yeah.
really drove home how powerful knowing or thinking, the future can be. Anyway, that fits the hourglass abyss vibe perfectly. Okay, one last setting, the hemocline.
This one might be the most visceral. The hemocline is a subterranean world, but it's inside the living body of some colossal creature. Maybe the world itself is alive.
Wait, inside? Like the tunnels are arteries and veins.
That's the idea. Blood is the environment. Civilizations live in these organic tunnels, adapting biology and tech. Imagine navigating passages that pulse with a giant heartbeat, walls made of living tissue.
Okay, that's incredibly weird and cool. The magic system must be related, right?
Absolutely. Bloodborne powers. People called hematurgists can manipulate blood flow for healing or for combat. And there's this idea of cellular memory.
Cellular memory.
Tapping into the world's blood or cells to gain knowledge, skills, maybe memories from the creature itself. Imagine learning ancient secrets by analyzing a blood sample.
Wild. And I'm guessing it's not all peaceful down there.
Not a chance. There's the flow war, constant conflict between different factions living in different parts of the body, like empires based in the arteries fighting rebels living in the lymph nodes.
Artery empires versus lymph rebels? You couldn't make this stuff up. What about dungeons?
They're called hemodungeons, and they're literally organs. Exploring a giant lung, delving into bone marrow, fighting off, rogue antibodies or infections. The traps and monsters are all biological.
Gross. And awesome. Rewards would be organic too, I guess.
Gene seed elixirs, living armor grown from cultures, cell memory, tomes. Yeah, that fits the theme.
And the big picture campaigns. Saving the world means saving the giant creature.
Could be. Saving the world heart from some kind of infection, maybe kicking out a parasitic blood god, or just navigating the crazy politics between the factions living inside this thing. The fate of the world is literally tied to its health.
Man, Heidi Jiang really delivered 5 incredibly distinct creative settings. The sinking shards, verdant singularity, cacophonic realms, hourglass abyss, hemocline. Each one is just packed with potential.
Yeah, it really lives up to that raw campaign potential description. They're all exercises in imagination, like she says. They push you to think differently about what an adventure can even be.
Totally agree. It really highlights the value of stepping off the beaten path, trying something genuinely new. That's where the real creative sparks fly at the gaming table.
And she makes a good point. Don't just take these wholesale. Mix them, match them, steal bits and pieces. Use them as starting points for your own unique creations.
Absolutely. It's about finding that inspiration to make something cool and unexpected for your players. True originality comes from exploring those unknown territories.
So, if any of this got your gears turning, definitely go check out the full article by Heidi Jiang. It's 5 unique homebrew campaign settings to inspire your tabletop D&D game over on LitRPG Reads.
And yeah, big thanks to Paul Bello, too. Heidi calls him a fine fellow, and LitRPG Reads is a great resource for this kind of creative content.
Now we're curious what you think. Which of these settings jumped out at you the most? The sinking shards, the verdant singularity? Any ideas on how you might use these concepts?
Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. We'd love to hear them.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into some really out there world building.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and may your adventures always be imaginative.